Hey, how's it going? So I couldn't take the isolation anymore and I had to go out. I didn't go to any stores. I didn't go to any public places. I jumped in my truck and drove to that one place that I always seem to run to when I'm lacking inspiration, when I just want to think, when I want to get back into the swing of photography. It's just kind of my runaway place, and that's the barn that I shoot all the time. So I used to say my barn. What's going on, Steve? I'm just sitting here. It's the fireside chat with Jamie. Yes, I went to the barn. It's funny. I was just getting ready to say that I used to call it my barn all the time, and it's crazy how in the last year I've seen probably 10 to 15 other photographers in the state of Michigan who've shot that barn. And I have no problem with it at all. I just feel like since I've kind of shared it and put it out there and told people where it's at, now it's just the barn, not my barn, the barn. So this is probably the last time I'll actually do any kind of a post where I say my barn. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. I know that I've had a few people message me and ask permission to go shoot the barn. You can see my dog over there. Where is it? Over there. There he is. But yeah, so it's everyone's barn. I hope everybody makes it out there at some point in time that is within driving distance or reasonable distance of it. So anyways, let's get back into this. So I went out to the barn and I just had to get out of the house. I had to get some fresh air. And most importantly, I had to take a camera with me and start taking some photos. So that's what I did. Many of you know that I've adopted a second camera system, and that's the Sony camera system. Yes, I agree, Steve. Everybody needs to find their version of the barn. And it's hard to just say, go look for it. Because I stumbled upon mine. She'll always be yours. Maybe a little. I mean, I'm letting her go. I'm letting other people, listen to me. I'm letting other people are shooting it, and I'm cool with that. It's kind of good to see how other people capture it. But to your point, Steve, just let it find you. I mean, maybe that's how this all works. Maybe it's not a matter of, hunting and looking and devoting all this energy and effort into finding your muse. Sometimes your muse just steps out in front of you. Sometimes you're into churches. There you go. Is there a single church in particular that you're really drawn to? Maybe a church that most people wouldn't even consider as like a photographic inspiration. I mean, that's the kind of thing, that I think kind of makes these things stand out. Like when I first started photographing my barn, I gotta stop saying my barn, the barn. And it was cool. It kind of stood off the road a ways, which is sort of hard to find, stood off the road a ways with nothing but field behind it. I mean, it had that going for it. But I think over time I got to develop a relationship with this barn, and I think that it's grown, a lot more charisma. It's just developed something over time. It's got a patina on it now. But yeah, so like I said, I went out there and, I've adopted another camera system. So this is what I'm shooting with now is the Sony. I don't know if my camera's going to focus on it or not, or if I have it on manual. But anyway, so it's the Sony A7 III is what I'm shooting with. The lens on here right now is the Samyang 14 millimeter f2.8. which is the Rokinon. It goes by like 3 or 4 different brands that they go by. This is the autofocus version of that lens. And this was like one of the first lenses I got for this system just because it was cheap. I think it was like $299 or $350 or something like that, which isn't bad for like an ultra wide angle lens that's autofocus. And of course, being someone who shoots a lot of landscapes, I wanted one of my first lenses to be pretty wide. So that's what I ended up with. But what I thought I might do is just kind of sit down here today and share post-processing with you guys. I don't know how this is going to look. I can't even begin to imagine how this is going to look. So I think what I'll probably do is just sort of go through my like normal workflow and try to screen share it as best as I can. I know that yeah, it can just get a little tricky doing screen shares because I'm working on multiple monitors, and I can only really share one monitor at a time. And so I'll probably share the monitor that my that the main editing window in Lightroom is in. And if I do things off screen, I got to make an adjustment here. If I do things off screen, what I will probably do is I'll probably have to, you can see the back of my iMac. What I'll probably end up having to do is kind of stop for just a split second so that I can switch over to like my secondary monitor, because I run Photoshop on the other monitor. Hey, Jeffrey. My Olympus wool cap is cooler than yours. I don't know. They're all cool. This is an old one. It says Trailblazer on it there. It's funny. I've kind of gone through like several different titles with Olympus. I started off as a visionary, and then they decided to create the Trailblazer name, and then went to a Trailblazer, back to a visionary, now an educator. I don't know, kind of crazy. So anyways, I think what I'll do is I'm just going to do a screen share here. And again, forgive me, this is going to look a little wonky as I do this stuff, but we'll give it a shot here. So first off, I'll just show you my workflow for doing this. Again, mine is different probably than everyone else's. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's just the one that I have. So in my Drobo, I have a folder called All Photos. And then in there, it's broken down by year. I've got them going all the way back to 2007 when I got my first camera, my Olympus E500. So here we are in 2020. So that's the master folder for 2020. And you'll see this first folder here is edits. So that is everything that I've shot in 2020 and edited. These are all synchronized with Google Photos. Okay. So that way, as soon as a picture lands in this folder, it's automatically synchronized up to Google Photos. That's part of my backup process. I also use Carbon Copy Cloner. And you can see that I've got a Western Digital My Cloud over here. So things are backed up to that as well using Carbon Copy Cloner. And then I use Amazon S3, and I do that more manually. I'll just kind of periodically remember, oh my gosh, I've probably need to do a backup, and I'll throw things over to Amazon as well. So in 2020, I'm going to add a folder here. And they're pretty generic. I just try to name them based on what I was doing. So Barn Sunset under COVID, right? And then I'll put the date. So today is what, 3/24? 25. Oh my gosh. It's not 225. I'll tell you what, folks, it feels like 225. So, and then basically I will open up the SD card, and I will just copy them over here. I don't remove them from the SD card until the next time I go out shooting. And sometimes I forget to format the card in the camera, and then I end up with tons of photos on that card that I have to sift through to move into my folder on my Drobo. But the reason I do that is because just in case something weird happens and I somehow delete my most recent import, I'll at least have it on the card. So again, that's kind of my process. And I apologize if the audio or the video or everything looks kind of gross and nasty. I've got 2 kids that are upstairs on Xbox playing online. So, I mean, you can imagine how that gets. It gets kind of bandwidth hoggish. So there, I've done my import. And Jeffrey should know this skyline. Were you there that night, Jeffrey? I don't remember. That was on Treasure Island looking back at San Francisco. So I will get rid of this screen, and you can see my ugly mug again for a second. And I'm going to launch Lightroom, and then I'll bring you guys back over to my main screen, and and just kind of go over the importing and all of that jazz. All right, so let me bring StreamYard back up. And I will share this screen. Now it's going to look crazy for a second, so I apologize. Woo! Off into infinity. So let me bring this back up. All right, so here we are in Lightroom. I'm in the library module. I'm just going to import these photos. And barn sunset under COVID. I import them. I add them without moving them from their original location. I know a lot of people like to just throw the SD card in when Lightroom's open and do the import that way. I don't. I just don't. Just leave it at that. Ooh, that's a little bit strong. Okay, so here we are. I've got the shots in here, and I don't go through any sort of a process of star rating or anything like that. I'm one of those people that comes home usually right after shooting and just jumps right in and starts editing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this series of 3 here because I know that they were bracketed shots. And that's just kind of what I do is bracket my shots and merge them to HDR and kind of get a feel for what it's going to look like from there. I don't have a crazy involved post-processing workflow or anything like that. So this might be a little boring, or you might look at it and wonder, gosh, why is he doing it this way versus another way, or what have you. So I'm not here to give any kind of magic secrets or tricks to how to get anything accomplished. I'm just sharing my workflow. And I do know that there is a shortcut to doing this, but I am still stuck old-fashioned with a million mouse clicks. I use keyboard shortcuts for a handful of things. Actually going over and merging to HDR is not one of them. I don't know why. And of course, I mean, I couldn't go out to the barn and not take some sort of a selfie. And I was using this little tiny tripod from Vanguard. I didn't bring a big tripod with me. And actually, my camera bag's back here. I'll grab it out and I'll show you which one I used. So this is the Vesta from Vanguard. It's just a little, it's like a tabletop portable tripod. And the horizon is kind of crooked on this shot, and actually really crooked, because when you have it in portrait orientation, I tried to do some portrait orientation shots. Let me go back here. This is the one that was really crooked that I wanted to mention here. Oh, wait, I didn't shoot one that way. Never mind. I take that back. I tried to shoot one in portrait orientation, but I couldn't because the way this tripod is, when the camera's right here in between the 2 feet, it weighs enough to tip it. That would have been a good thing for the Olympus camera to be able to have that with me instead, because it wouldn't have weighed enough to tip this little tripod over. But that's just what I was using to kind of snap these selfies. Actually, here is, I did do one in portrait orientation. I thought I had tried. See what I mean? It's just a little bit skewed, so we won't be using that one. So actually, I'll go through and I'll just work on developing this one right here, because this one is not a bracketed shot. And it's a little different workflow for me working on one of these. Something I'm going to point out right away that I hate about Sony. Look at that. Look at that. Look at those. It's disgusting. The Sony sensor, I think, was designed specifically to suck in dust and stick it to the sensor. It's obnoxious. I can't stand it. Actually, I had to do something that I've never had to do with my Olympus cameras. I actually had to order sensor swabs for this camera, and they should arrive here tomorrow. Yeah, not cool. Not cool at all. God, I love Olympus for their dust reduction. It's just absurdly good. So I'm going to go through and just kind of get my horizon a little bit more level. I know I didn't adjust it much, but I get ribbed from a couple of buddies of mine about level horizons. If you're watching, Seth or Mark, yes, I'm talking about you guys. And you'll see that I like the overlays in Lightroom. I use the golden ratio one a lot, kind of have an affinity for the golden ratio. It's actually, on my body permanently. I don't live and die by the rule of thirds or by using the golden spiral or golden ratio to compose. But if I am going to kind of change what I'm doing a little bit, it is something that I will use. So maybe something along the lines of that for a crop is what I would work with. So again, my workflow is super simple. I love to work in the hue, saturation, and luminance sliders. I always start off with the saturation. Excuse me. So again, sunset, we've got lots of oranges. We've got a little bit of pink and magenta, and we've got plenty of blues here. So I work on cranking up the saturation on these a little bit. I'll bring the yellow down a little bit. The yellow is like the super, super bright spot in this image for me. And I do want the blue in the sky to pop here at some point. And then I'm going to bump up my magenta a little bit. So now for the luminance, this is where I make a little bit more contrast between the clouds and the sky. So I'll start underexposing the blues in the sky. So that makes the white in those clouds really start to stand out quite a bit more. And then I'll go back and I will deepen up the orange just a little bit, about there. Lower the reds, even though I didn't mess with them as far as saturation is concerned. And this purple, drop that back a little bit. Next, I'll probably work into here and I will do a radial filter in the foreground, probably to bring out the shadow detail a little bit in these trees here in the foreground because they are silhouetted. Another way you could do it also would be to use a gradient mask this way and use that to kind of pull the shadows out a little bit. That's not too bad. And if I get quiet here while I'm working, sorry, I just start thinking about what I'm doing. That's not too shabby. Not bad, not bad. And the same here. My computer's running a little bit slow. I've never tried a screen share. I have no idea what I've got open in the background either. I really don't have much. This is the first time I've heard the fans come on in my iMac. It's a brand new iMac. And it's pretty loaded out. Oops. Didn't want to do that. What am I doing? What am I doing? There we go. All right. We'll just... That's what I wanted to do. I don't know what I was hitting Command D for, but I did anyways. I think because in the Nick suite of software, I think you can hit Command D and duplicate one of your control points. And I just did it again. This is what happens when you work live, folks. You just do silly, goofy things repeatedly. I told you I don't do a lot of keyboard shortcuts. And this is why. And that one's way too bright. And I know it looks kind of gross right now, but just bear with me. It feels kind of weird to be doing this, actually, to be showing people how I work. I don't really do that a whole lot. All right. Oh boy. Now these are the sliders that can get out of hand really quick. Dehaze and clarity. But I think in certain circumstances, you can get them to work out. All right. And maybe an adjustment brush for these clouds. Where am I at here? Oh my gosh, Jamie. Again, I feel weird doing this. So I feel like a little bit on the spot. So I might mumble and sound a little goofy when I'm doing this, but it was a bit much. There we go. Just gonna throw in a little bit of pops in the white here. Nothing crazy. And again, I'm not one of those people that spends hours and hours on a photo. I'll get it to where I'm just kind of happy with it, and then I'll stop. So what do we got here? Too many bitters. Okay. So we're kind of getting there. Actually, I'll probably leave this one alone. I find if I get to a point where I'm not sure what I want to do next, I'll kind of leave it and then come back and revisit that later. So let's jump into another photo here. We'll jump into one of the bracketed shots here. First thing I'll do in here, I'll see what Lightroom does automatically to correct for distortion and perspective. And it moved a little bit on my secondary monitor. I didn't see it do anything on this monitor. Did you guys see it move? I didn't see it move. Well, we can do it manually, which I hate doing because this is going to be wonky because this barn is already pretty kittywampus. See what I mean? And then what? Then what do I do? Try to level it and bring it right back to where we were. How about that? A little bit better. Back to the hue, saturation, and luminance. Darken these oranges up a bit. Actually, I should have started off in saturation. Got outside of my normal workflow. The orange is definitely saturated enough, but I do want that blue, more blue, and I want those purples that are buried in there a little more purple. Now we'll go back into luminance. We'll darken this blue up. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the fan is actually running in my computer right now. Yeesh. Cool. You know what? And I can't see you guys chatting either. If you guys are talking, let me jump back to my other screen. Holy smokes. Let me stop sharing for a second. There we go. It's neat to see my process. I appreciate that. Don't let Lightroom import the cards. Actually use Photo Mechanic for all that. So Jeffrey, speaking of Photo Mechanic, do you use that to cull images? Because I know that you can get raw previews like super, super fast. And I know that a lot of people talk about Photo Mechanic for that. So I'm kind of curious, if you don't mind typing in the window there, what's your reasoning for using Photo Mechanic initially before your import to Lightroom? Calibration settings. So are you talking about if I go back into, let me just bring that screen share back up. So are you talking about in here, these profiles? I'm assuming that's what you mean. They do. They definitely have some pop to them. Kind of dig it. I'm going to jump back to the chat so I can see if that's what you were talking about. What led me to this process? So I've never been a straight out of camera person, really, ever. I think I've probably got a handful of images that came straight out of the camera that I was like, oh my God, this is it. I'm done. And I think the reason is because in high school and just after high school, I was pretty heavily involved in art. I liked to draw and paint. And it was mostly watercolors that I painted with. And I just liked the process of laying down color and kind of defining the way an image looked through how I put color into it. So after high school, I didn't have a camera right after high school. It was quite a while after high school, actually. And I went from being involved in art that way to getting a computer and getting into like 3D modeling, and then kind of dabbling in like Paint Shop Pro and programs like that to try to create images that way. So again, like really art focused and not so much image creation focused. And then when I got a camera, I started just taking photos and stumbled upon Trey Ratcliffe like a lot of people do. And that was back when Trey Ratcliffe was like first kind of coming onto the scene, again, probably like 2007, 2008. And at the time, you know, I was just floored by the images he was making. You know, they were just wicked vibrant and crazy looking. And I didn't understand what in the heck he was doing until I started watching, you know, videos from him and chatted back and forth. It was back when you could chat back and forth with Trey Ratcliffe. Chatted back and forth with him quite a bit on the process and learning how that works. And I loved that he was taking an image and creating art from it. And again, with an art background, I kind of felt like that was a natural progression for me. So my philosophy is that when I take an image, that is my canvas. Okay. So once that canvas is laid out in front of me, then I get to paint in whatever I want. I can paint in my emotions, how I felt when I took that photo. I can paint in how I feel at the moment that I'm editing. If some memories trickle into my head while I'm doing the editing, you know, those can show up in there and as well as far as how I treat the image. Because yeah, I mean, you could take a scene like the one that we're working on here with this barn, and you know, the natural tones to it are really warm on one side and really cool on the other. And it's really not hard to take an image like that and then just start dropping the exposure down and getting it really dark and kind of ominous feeling, you know. So if you were in that kind of a mood, you can express that through the image if you treat it as a canvas for your emotions. Thanks, Ted. It's funny. I sat in the truck waiting for the sun to set. Being cooped up inside for a while, I guess I lost track of when the sun sets. I got to this location, good grief, like a half hour before sunset, you know. So I'm just kind of hanging out in my truck on a dirt road, waiting for the sun to do its thing and to pop out from behind the clouds. And it kind of worked out pretty good. Okay, Steve, dude, if it wasn't like this whole COVID thing and all that, I would probably drive over and give you a humongous hug. I think that's the biggest compliment you can ever give somebody in photography. And I'm not going to lie, I've kind of waited my whole photography career to have someone say that to me. Dude, just totally, ooh, just kind of, yeah, that one stuck with me. I appreciate you saying that you can tell if it's mine or not. Oh my God. I'm such a sap. That means a lot, man. It does. It does. Oh wow. Don't give Jamie whiskey and photo editing and then give him a compliment because he can't handle it. Yeah, wow. I'm like all hot and sweaty. So I better just shut up and and get back to editing this photo. I feel like a goofball. Totally made my day though. So with this one, I kind of, again, I'm not going to do a whole lot to it. I think I want to raise the shadows here in the barn though. I want to bring out some detail in those. So I will jump in here with shadows, and I'm just going to start, where am I at here? 52, and I'll raise the exposure just a bit and see what this looks like, lightening that up. Definitely one of the cool things with this Sony system is how much, I know this is way too overexposed and it's going to look really silly at first, so bear with me. I'm just kind of going in hot and heavy with this adjustment. Not too bad. But yeah, one of the things with the Sony cameras is just how much detail you can pull out of the shadows. Again, I mean, I know it's physics and it's because of the sensor, the full frame sensor and all that. It's probably one of the few reasons that I went with that camera as a second system, is just to see what kind of latitude I can get with pulling detail out of shadows and things like that. Excuse me. And so far it has not disappointed at all. Unlike these darn sensor spots that are totally going to make me vomit on my computer. Oh. So this will be a new learning process for me too, is cleaning my sensor off. I was telling a good friend of mine the other day, I told her that I think the entire time I've owned Olympus cameras, I think I may have cleaned my sensor like once. Granted, I don't shoot at like f22 all the time or f16, rarely, but when I did, I hardly ever remember seeing sensor spots. I'm shooting like f10 in these shots, and yeah, f10, and holy cow, like it's disgusting. No, I'll stop complaining, you guys. I think I will play around with the fields a little bit and kind of see what it looks like, brightening up the exposure down here. That's a little bit much, so I'll drop that back down a bit and saturate. I want these greens, what little greens there are in here, to show up. That's about it. And then we'll go back in. Like I said, I'll play with the haze just a little bit and clarity. And actually, I should probably maybe paint in the clouds just a little bit as well. It's funny how much purple and pink there is in these clouds. I guess this would be a good time to get out like the Wacom tablet and just kind of draw them in, do some dodging and burning in Photoshop rather than here in Lightroom. I mean, this is pretty not accurate way of doing it, I guess. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of broadly just blasting these adjustments out here. But I think just enough to give it a little bit more pop. So tell me what you guys are doing to get through this whole self-quarantine. If you're quarantining, if you're not, I'm interested to hear what that whole experience is like. Tell me what it's like on the outside, please. I'm going to jump out of this window for a minute so I can see you guys chat. Yeah, Mike, definitely so much dynamic range on these Sonys. It's bananas. What am I drinking? Geez, it's Pendleton, and it's a Canadian blended whiskey. It's something that I would use to definitely mix drinks with. So not really following a recipe, but like 2 pops of Angostura bitters, 1 pop of Peychaud's bitters, and like half a sugar cube because I don't have any simple syrup, and plopped in an ice cube. It's about it. I think when I was doing the last show, I was drinking Balvenie 17 Scotch, and I've kind of recently, in like the last year, developed a taste for Scotch. I don't have the budget for the really good Scotches, but it's funny. I never thought I'd like Scotch, because the first opportunity I really had to have a decent Scotch was it was on an Olympus excursion to Whistler, and the PR agency that Olympus works with, they're kind of our handlers when we're on these events. They arrange for all the dinners and all the things like that. And when the day comes to an end, they basically just take care of everybody, So we hung out at the bar at the resort there in Whistler, and they were passing around drinks. And the gentleman that was there is a Scotch aficionado, and he asked the bartender, if you have such and such Scotch. I have no idea what it was. And they said, yeah, we do actually. And he says, oh my gosh, so make it a double because we're all going to try this. And it was something outrageously expensive. It was like a couple $100 for the glass or something. And when they poured it, I was about 6 feet away at the table when they set it down on the table. And I thought, oh my God, you guys are going to drink this? I can smell it 6 feet away. And it was horrible, horrible. And I took a taste and I thought, oh, this is so not for me. It tasted like I was drinking a chemical, seriously. But, 4 or 5 years pass, and I kind of like some of the Scotches too. I found that usually like a single drop of nice cold clean water just kind of changes the whole dynamic of what a Scotch is. I feel like I'm doing a Scotch podcast now, but I'm an amateur. So anyways, hopefully that answers your question, Richard. I get off on tangents. I started off telling you that I'm drinking whiskey and somehow stumbled into the world of Scotch. So Steve says he's been out of work for a week, been on COVID quarantine. Go back tomorrow, doing some abstract work. That's fun. I need to get my head wrapped around not looking at the big picture and start focusing on all the little elements that are sitting in the big picture and finding those little abstract scenes. I used to do that a lot, and I think that's probably something I need to start exploring more. It's so much fun. It really opens up the creativity a lot. Russ says, stay-at-home dad whose daughter does K through 12 online learning platform. Good. That's good. I mean, it's good that you guys don't have like a massive disruption in life. So, yeah, hopefully everybody's, again, kind of staying safe and sound and has everything that they need supply wise and things like that. And again, I'll throw this out there. Anybody ever wants to chat? I'm working from home for who knows how much longer, weeks probably. And I'm always at the computer all day long. So if you want to chat, just hit me up. I'll answer for sure. Jeffrey said he enjoyed walking around some gardens today in another nearby city using 300 and the 2X. Yeah, that makes a crazy macro combination. I mean, you can sit in the restaurant across the street and take macro photos of the stuff on the other side of the street. It's a beastly long combination for sure. But it works super great for macro. I think some of my favorite macro shots of the last couple of years were shot with the 300. Don't discount what a super telephoto can do. And I haven't tried focus stacking with it. You're a wild man, I tell you. It's a good one, Jeffrey. So let me jump back into this picture really quick here and see what I can get accomplished with it. This would be a fun one to throw in Luminar and just see what the sunburst looks like in that. You think? Maybe? I don't know. We'll see. I don't have it set up to shoot out into Luminar. So this is what I'll do. Let's see. I'm just going to call it Barn for Luminar. And I'm going to shoot that bad boy out. And then I'll just open up Luminar. Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I have Luminar on this computer. I do. So I will. Let me just get out of Lightroom. I think I'm done in Lightroom. I'm not going to keep you guys on here. I know this isn't the most exciting post-processing class you've ever seen, so I won't bore you much longer. Let's just see what it does in Luminar. I don't use Luminar hardly ever, to be honest with you. It's just, trial expired. Great. Now I got to dig through my email and get out my login thing. Grr. All right. Well, let me do that another time. Backyard's been greening up. So where are you at, Richard? Here in Michigan, my yard's just starting to green up. Daffodils are popping up, and they've got big buds on the end of them. They're about ready to open up before too long. So I'm kind of excited for that. I'm kind of excited to be able to get walking around in the woods again. I want to go to this spot where I know that there's a pair of wood duck that keep coming back year after year, and they're probably there right now waiting for me to take their photos. So I'd like to go back now that I have the 2X teleconverter. Oklahoma. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to ask you, do you have Netflix? And if you do, have you watched Tiger King? I just have to ask. There was a guy in Oklahoma that had like hundreds and hundreds of tigers. And there's a show about it on Netflix, and it's pretty crazy. Yeah, so anyways, I'll let you guys go. I think what I'm going to do, though, is the photos that I worked on here, I'm going to pop them. Tiger King. Yeah, look it up on Netflix. If you have Netflix, just look up Tiger King. I think the guy's name is Joe Exotic. He's like super huge in Oklahoma, almost like a celebrity. Yeah, so anyways, if you're a member of the Flickr group, Life Under COVID, that's probably where I'll put these photos. I'll also share them on Facebook as well. And if you're not on Flickr, go sign up. Go sign up for a free account. It's a super great place to share your images, especially the fact that you can share them in like a much higher quality than you can on Facebook and other social platforms. So that's kind of why I'm getting back into sharing over there more. And if you've got any questions about how to find that Flickr group or whatever, just get a hold of me and I'll give you a link to it and go check it out. The whole premise of it, again, was to have people just document what's going on in their lives during this whole thing, you know, whether it's something that's obviously and directly related to this pandemic, you know, or if it's something like what I'm going to share today. It was just me escaping the mental drain of the whole pandemic thing and getting out to a place that really speaks to me and inspires me to shoot. He's been arrested and no longer has tigers. Animal abuse. Yeah, I kind of figured that's where this is headed in the documentary, but I just started watching it and it's just like, oh my gosh, there's some crazy people out there for sure. So tomorrow night is Mirrorless Minutes. I hope to see you guys all there. Mike will be on, and I'm really looking forward to sharing the photos that you guys have been sharing with me via email, through Facebook Messenger, and the Flickr group, Life Under COVID. We want to just kind of share what you guys have been up to and what you guys are making, especially at a time where we're forced to be a lot more creative maybe than we normally are. So we'll see you guys tomorrow night at 8 on this channel. You guys take care, stay safe, keep those hands clean, and I'll see you in about 24 hours.